Awesome. All right. Well, welcome everyone to today's session of Multicloud Happenings. We're glad you've joined us and we're excited for today's discussion. As you likely know, Oracle AI World 2025 was held 2 weeks back. And since we announced the general availability of the zero data loss autonomous recovery service on Oracle database at AWS that same week, Vishal and I wanted to take a closer look at the service and highlight some of its capabilities, architectural aspects, and operational modes, including enabling automated backups to the service, monitoring database protection status, and performing restores of protected databases. But first, please use the Q&A function to post questions at any time, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go, and we will save time to answer questions live at the end of the presentation. Some quick introductions. My name is Nathan Fuzzi, and I'm a product manager here at Oracle, where I work on the Exadata database service and base database service, both in Oracle Cloud and in Multicloud. I'm joined by my colleague and good friend, Vishal Patil. Vishal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Vishal Patil. I'm a product manager for Exadata Database Service and Base Database Service and Multi-Cloud Solutions.
Awesome. Thanks, Vishal. Okay, here's our safe harbor statement. It effectively says that we're sharing information and we may discuss future plans, and that anything we say here is for informational purposes only and is not a commitment to deliver any specific feature or on any specific timeline. And statements made here may not be incorporated into a contract. As always, we strongly encourage you to reach out to product management, Vishal or myself, or your Oracle account team if you have questions or requirements for more concrete plans or timelines. Okay, well, for those who are new to this webcast, let's just set some context for the discussion ahead. So, over the past decade, Oracle has expanded its on premises database offering to the cloud via Oracle Cloud Infrastructure public regions, Cloud at Customer, and OCI dedicated regions. And in the past several years, Oracle has also built partnerships with other leading hyperscalers, including Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and most recently, AWS. Oracle's multi-cloud philosophy is to bring the Oracle AI database services to where you operate other aspects of your infrastructure and to make your most critical business data available to all the native services in your preferred cloud provider, including artificial intelligence, machine learning, and analytics services. This simplifies your architecture and improves performance and scalability while providing all the Oracle AI database enterprise grade capabilities, security, and reliability that customers have long used on premises. And we like to say it's the same database, the same features, and the same pricing everywhere. So, what services are available in Oracle's multi cloud offering? Well, the Oracle Autonomous AI Database is our most advanced, fully managed cloud native database offering running on top of Oracle Exadata. The Exadata database service delivers an Oracle AI database service on the Exadata platform with extensive cloud automation while leaving full administrative control in your hands. The base database service offers a lower cost Oracle AI database service on standard infrastructure that still provides lots of cloud automation and gives you full administrative control. And finally, the autonomous recovery service gives you a fully managed zero data loss backup and recovery solution that minimizes the impact of backups on your databases, stores them efficiently and securely, and provides continuous validation of your backups for peace of mind. We have offered the autonomous recovery service in OCI and in Azure and Google Cloud for some time now, and we're excited about recently launching it in AWS. But what challenges is the autonomous recovery service designed to address? Well, particularly relevant in the context of cloud database deployments, and especially in multi-cloud environments, there are a few major challenges facing customers. Ransomware, and more broadly, data loss and theft is a major risk. Malicious actors who gain access to your database can seriously disrupt your business. If they also control your database backups, they could take you out of business. Operationally, backups are also historically heavily impactful to database performance. They're time and resource consuming to validate, leading many organizations to test them only periodically or spot check them across the estate. And this leaves a lot of unknowns in terms of recoverability at any point in time. And of course, as IT estates grow larger and more varied, it's easier for small details to slip through the cracks. Details like whether a particular database has the appropriate backup frequency and retention, and whether those backups are successfully occurring as expected. And finally, whether a given database's backup scheme is meeting the business's required recovery point and time objectives. The Zero Data Loss Autonomous Recovery Service addresses these challenges with strict internal security and external communications at access means, mandatory encryption of backups, and policies to protect backups from deletion or modification. The Autonomous Recovery Service eliminates the load of recurring full backups from its protected databases, and it implements an incremental forever backup methodology that improves efficiency and drastically reduces the impact of incremental backup operations. And because it's Oracle Recovery Manager aware, it provides continuous backup validation for peace of mind with zero impact to the source database system. The Autonomous Recovery Service provides click to enable protection with zero data loss for any cloud database, Oracle Cloud database, along with per database consumption visibility and detailed insights into the recovery health status aspects like the current recovery window and the potential data loss at any time. By providing these features, the Autonomous Recovery Service reduces the complexity and effort of implementing database backups at scale, vastly improves the security of those backups over traditional methods, and greatly reduces the risk of data loss, unrecoverable backups, and unforeseen backup consumption costs. So here we highlight the key aspects of the Autonomous Recovery Service as it applies to Oracle Database cloud services in OCI and multi-cloud. The recovery service offers optional zero data loss protection by streaming redo information to the service on top of the database backups for enabled databases. Recovery is accelerated by creating virtual full backups from the incremental change sets, meaning each database block needs to be restored only once rather than restoring a full backup and then applying incremental backups on top of that. Data encryption is mandatory on the service with keys owned by the database, not stored with the backups. Backup immutability and retention lock protect against changes to or deletion of backups. And granular access controls mean that malicious actors can't override those safeguards. Protected databases communicate securely with the service's endpoints, storing the backups in the service in an Oracle management tenancy, creating a logical air gap that separates and protects backups from live system environments. As I mentioned, backups are stored in an Oracle management tenancy and outside the customer tenancy that protects them in the event of a breach of the customer tenancy or from an internal threat. Directing all backup communications through the service's private endpoints in the customer tenancy minimizes their exposure and keeps them secure. The RMAN configuration and jobs are automated, ensuring consistency and correctness. The autonomous recovery service always replicates backups to another availability zone or availability domain for added protection and high availability, including in all multi-cloud environments. And this happens automatically inside the service without the involvement of administrators. And it helps reduce risk, making your backups available to restore even in the event of a full AD or AZ outage. Another look at the architecture, this time of the entire Oracle database at hyperscaler architecture. The foundation of the service is that the physical infrastructure running the Oracle database services is hosted inside the partner hyperscaler data center. And the Oracle database at hyperscaler network, or VNet, is peered with the CSP tenancy, VPC, or VNet. And this creates the ideal situation for application access to Oracle database at hyperscaler services in terms of private connections, low latency, and high bandwidth over dedicated network infrastructure. It also provides direct access from Oracle Cloud Database Services to the Autonomous Recovery Service via the backup subnet. And just to touch on Oracle's maximum availability architecture, or MAA, in multi-cloud as it relates to the Autonomous Recovery Service, you'll note that you have a lot of options when it comes to enabling automatic backups for the Oracle database at hyperscaler services. We recommend leveraging the Autonomous Recovery Service for local automatic backups for all the reasons we've talked about already. Now that the Autonomous Recovery Service is available in AWS as well, this option is recommended regardless of the hyperscaler you choose. For an MAA Gold configuration, which specifies backups for data protection, Oracle Real Application Clusters, or RAC, for high availability, and Oracle Active Data Guard for high availability and disaster recovery with low recovery point and time objectives. We recommend leveraging the Autonomous Recovery Service in a secondary region to perform local automatic backups of the standby database as well. You have the option to use the Autonomous Recovery Service in the paired OCI region instead if you need to. And remember also that the redo traffic traverses the OCI managed network by default, and Oracle provides up to 10 terabytes of egress traffic per month free, which includes cross-region traffic. But if you want to keep all your traffic within the partner hyperscaler, you can direct redo traffic over the CSP network. And just be aware that you may incur data transfer charges in that case. And if you fail over your database in a cross AZ or cross region scenario, you should consider failing over your application stack as well to maintain performance. And now I'll turn the mic over to Vishal to share some more information and walk us through some of what we've covered in the console. Vishal?
Thank you, Nathan. Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay. Nathan, can you confirm you can see my screen?
Let's see. I'm not seeing it yet. We try again. Oh, I see a thumbs up. Could be just me. There we go. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So What we have, as Nathan mentioned earlier, that at Oracle AI World, we announced the general availability for Oracle Database Zero Data Loss Autonomous Recovery Service on Oracle Database at AWS. What does that mean is the Autonomous Recovery Service would run natively in AWS data centers. So earlier, there were options to do the automatic backups of your databases running in Oracle Database at AWS. You had options such as backups to S3, backups to OCI object storage, and backups to autonomous recovery service, but that was running in OCI. Now you have an option to have the automated backups or automatic backups going to autonomous recovery service natively running in AWS data centers. Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. Nathan mentioned it and gave a lot of details about why we need to have, or what is the reason the backup should go to autonomous recovery service. But I want to spend a lot of time on the console and show you how it looks, what resources it creates, and how do you make sure that the backups are going to autonomous recovery service. But just a quick recap of what Nathan said. You can back up your databases to zero data loss autonomous recovery service natively running in AWS data centers. You can restore those backups on to create a new database, or you can do in-place restores as well. Now, one of the important thing, and I'll show you in the console as well, um, that one of the important thing to notice is, as I said earlier, autonomous recovery service was available for the backups, automatic backups, uh, but that was available in OCI. Now it is available in AWS. One of the ways to do this is using the protection policy in the autonomous recovery service. So what we have is we create a protection policy, and if you can see here, the left screen, it says that store backups in the same cloud provider as the database. And it's the similar policy we use for other multi-cloud offering, such as Oracle Database at Azure or Oracle Database at Google Cloud. So when you enable this, that means that the backups will be stored in the autonomous recovery service running within AWS data centers. And while we are configuring the automatic backups for a certain database, what we do is we enable the automatic backups. The backup destination is autonomous recovery service, which is the recommended option. And then we specify the protection policy we created earlier. On the left side screen, you see the protection policy. And that shows that the backups will be stored in Amazon Web Services. So that is how we make sure that the backups are stored in the same data center where your database is running. And in this case, it's AWS data centers. All right, so this is again just to show what all we can do with autonomous recovery service. One of the things is you can enable real-time data protection. That means the redo data is sent to autonomous recovery service to give you minimum, RPO, because you will see that in one of the screens I show later on, that the difference between when you enable the real-time data protection versus when you don't have that enabled. It's incremental forever backup strategies. There are no required weekly full backups. So you take full backup, the initial full backup, which happens, and then all the backups are incremental. It's daily incremental backups, which are configured through the automatic backups, and there are no weekly full backups required. And you can select a time for your backups. You can specify a time, or you can say any time is fine as well. But you can specify a certain time of the day for the backups to happen. The backup retention is minimum 14 days and maximum 95 days for the operational backups. And then there are long-term retention backups, which can go up to 10 years. But for operational backups, it's 14 to 95 days. And the cost is based on the amount of data you are backing up and the amount of data which is satisfying your recovery window. That's the cost you will pay. And then if real-time data protection is enabled, there is some extra cost incurred. Now, there's no reason to use object storage for backups. I mean, cost-wise, it's the same cost when you have backups going to object storage versus backups going to autonomous recovery service. If you enable real-time data protection, then there is some premium on top of the normal backup charges. All right, so let's jump into the console walkthrough. I'll have to stop share and share again, or maybe I have the desktop shared. So let me check once. Yes, okay. All right, so I'm on AWS console right now. And Oracle Database at AWS, this is the homepage for Oracle Database at AWS offering. If you go to dashboard, there are multiple resources. You will see ODB networks, Exadata infrastructure, Exadata VM clusters, autonomous VM clusters, and the ODB peering connection. And I'm showing this demo for AWS since that's the latest CSP where we have autonomous recovery service generally available. But similarly, we have autonomous recovery service in Google and Azure. I'm not doing that demo today, but I'm showing what we have in AWS. So just to set the stage, I have this ODB network created, which is I created this a couple of days back. And what happens is when you create the ODB network, it creates the respective OCI resources, which is Virtual Cloud Network VCN and the client and backup subnets. Now, if you see, let me just zoom a little bit. So it created, when I created the ODB network, it asked me the CIDR ranges for client subnet and backup subnet. So these are the CIDR ranges I provided while creating the ODB network. And then there are OCI resources which get created. And when I click on OCI resources, it should take me to the OCI console, and where I can show you the details of the VCN, which gets created automatically. You don't have to create it manually. It gets created automatically. And then what you have is the subnet, same CIDR ranges, which we provided for client and backup subnet. Those subnets get created. And then the other thing I wanted to show is the security with respect to the autonomous recovery service. Now, the ZRCV underscore NSG, this is the network security group, which gets created automatically. So what's happening is when you create the ODB network, it is creating most of the things required to facilitate your backups to go to autonomous recovery service. For an example, the backup static NSG, which shows the egress rules for 2484 and 8005. These are the ports required for autonomous recovery service to work. And then ingress also, this is created through the through the ZRCV underscore NSG network security group. And it shows the ingress for 2484 and 8005. So 2484 is for the RMAN catalog connections, and 8005 is for the actual backup pieces going to the autonomous recovery service. So these are the things which got created with respect to the OCI VCN and then the network security groups, the client and backup subnets. Now, another thing, important thing to understand is the IAM policy so that our database service, Oracle Database at AWS, is able to use the autonomous recovery service. So what's happening is if I see this, if I go to root compartment here, I created this ZRCV policy. Now, if you are enabling or if you are linking a new account, OCI tenancy, to AWS account, it's a new subscription, then you don't have to do anything. This policy gets created automatically. But if it is an existing account which was already linked, there was a subscription in place, then you'll have to create this manually just to allow. And these are the security rules. These security rules are documented we in the autonomous recovery service documentation, as well as the multi-cloud OCI multi-cloud documentation under the Oracle database at AWS and the respective sections as well. So this is the policy, IAM policy, which will be required. And for the newer tenancies, newer subscriptions, this is created automatically. One of the important things to check in case of multi-cloud specifically is the limits, right? So whether your subscription has the limits to use the autonomous recovery service, right? So if I go to limits and then search for, this looks different. Here, just a moment. Okay, I'll come back to this, but that's one thing we need to check is whether we have limits for the subscription to use the autonomous recovery service. We can select the subscription, and then we can also select the tenancy itself. And then we can find out whether the number of protected databases as well as the size allocated is appropriate before you can start using the limits. Now, the other thing which we need to check is the protection policy. So if I go to Oracle AI database and if I go to database backups, that's where all the autonomous recovery service information you'll find. And then what you can do is it shows there is a menu which shows three items: protected databases, recovery service subnets, and protection policies. Right. So let's look at the recovery service subnet. So what happens is when you create the ODB network, it created a recovery service subnet as well for me. Right. So it uses the backup subnet. Basically, what it does is it enables the backup network between the protected database and the recovery service. So this is the recovery service subnet, which was automatically created. You don't have to create this manually. But let's say if you want to create a specific subnet, recovery subnet, you can do that as well. And then, there can be only one recovery subnet per VCN you can have. So in this case, the subnet is the backup subnet used as the recovery service subnet. And then network security group, we have seen this network security group before, which allows traffic on 2484 and 8005. So that's another thing to look at. And by the way, all of these things are automatically created for you. You don't have to worry about them, but you have the granular controls where you can go and change some of these things based on your requirements. Now let's look at the protection policy quickly. This is important, as I showed previously on the slide, that you create a protection policy. And when you create the protection policy, you specify where the backups should be stored. Now, this is the option I was talking about, the store backups in the same cloud provider as the database. You would want to enable this to make sure that the backups are not leaving the AWS data centers, right? So they're not going to OCI Autonomous Recovery Service, and they're staying within AWS data centers. So you will create that backup policy. I have one created already. I'll just quickly show you what it shows. So the policy type is user defined. Backup location is same cloud provider as the database. And the backup retention period is 14 days, right? So that's what I selected. Now, what I do is let's go to the protected database. So what I have right now, there is one database which is protected using this protection policy. And then let's look at the details for that database. There are some good things to look at, such as, uh, yeah, so we can look at that later. But one thing I wanted to show is the data loss exposure is 1 second right now. Since I have the real-time protection enabled, that means it is sending redo data to the autonomous recovery service directly. And then it's using that protection policy, which I showed earlier, ZRCV AWS. The backups are stored in AWS for this particular database. If you see the current recovery window, it's 4 days, 21 hours. That's when I had created the database, or that's when I had enabled the backups for this database using autonomous recovery service. And that's why it is showing me the current recovery window is 4 days, and it will go up to 14 days because that's the retention period we have specified on our protection policy. Again, the backup location is Amazon Web Services. And then if you see here, there are some good stats to look at. The recovery window current space used for this particular recovery window, which is 4 days. Currently, it is using 69 gigabytes. Projected space used for policy, that means when it reaches that 14 days retention period or recovery window, then, and given that whatever the growth of the database so far for last 4 days, it calculated that it would be around 139 GB for the projected space. And the database size itself, which is protected by this the protection policy and the autonomous recovery service, is 22 gigabytes. Some more information, which is, if there was any failed backup, because it's taking daily incremental backups. So if there was any failed backups, so far there is none, which is a good thing. And then it also shows when was the last completed backup. It should be this morning around 8 o'clock UTC. And then last backup duration, what was the backup duration for that? And it shows, what all, which database it is protecting, and those details like the database version and all that. All right. Now let's quickly look at the monitoring. What it shows is there are some metrics shown here, which is, space used for recovery window. You can, look at interval and statistics. You can you can change that and, look at those metrics graphically. Protected database size, what is the size of the database? And in this case, the database size is not changing because I don't have any data loads going on, but it is constantly staying the same, but it will be different in the real production databases. What is the health of the database? Current protection status, it will show, then, protected, warning, or, alert, and then data loss exposure. What is the data loss exposure? So this 2,500 seconds, it must be during the last incremental backup. But we haven't seen, or maybe this is the backup when, the incremental backup was running. But these are the things you can monitor. There is another way to monitor autonomous recovery service, which is using the metrics explorer. We can take a quick look at that. So in the metrics explorer, all these metrics are sent to the metrics explorer service as well. The namespace is OCI recovery service. So if you select the OCI recovery service namespace, then there are different matrices you can use, such as data loss exposure, protected database fetch config, database health, database size, and then space used for recovery window. And then you can create a OCI dashboard for, if you have multiple databases, you can select the database, whether it's a single database or you can select multiple databases and create a dashboard for all your databases if required. But you get most of the information in the database backups section itself. All right. Apart from monitoring, I wanted to show some more details about the database itself. Let's see, if we go to the database page, and this is some repeat of information, but just wanted to make sure that you are all aware of what all places it shows this information, to make sure that you understand where the backups are going, just to confirm if they are going to the AWS autonomous recovery service, or they are going to OCI autonomous recovery service, or object storage, or any other destinations, right? Now, for this particular database, with respect to backups, the automatic backups are enabled. Health is protected, data loss exposure, it is showing 1 second. And then same information which we saw earlier in the protected databases page under database backups is available here as well. It shows the backup destination as autonomous recovery service and then the protection policy, which is getting used. And you can change this 14 days retention period. You can modify the protection policy, or you can create a new protection policy and assign that policy for this database. So you can do those things. Now, another thing I wanted to show here is if you go to more actions and click on configure automatic backups, this is where you can enable or disable automatic backups. And then the backup destination is autonomous recovery service. You can change that to something else if required. And then the protection policy, which we created, this is where you specify the protection policy, right? So you can have as many protection policies as you want. And then if you want to change the protection policy for one of the databases, you can do that as well. And for this protection policy, I have the retention log disabled, but as Nathan was explaining, for ransomware protection, you may want to enable, or for the immutability of the databases, you can enable the retention log so that nobody is able to change the retention of the backups or delete those backups from the autonomous recovery service. And then the deletion option after database termination, whether you want to retain the backups until the protection policy period, or you can retain the backups for 72 hours and then delete. So that's what you can specify here. And this is another thing which I was talking about earlier. You can schedule the time for daily backups. In this one, I specified any time, but you can say, let's say you want to specifically have it during midnight, then you can specify that, and then you can say. So that's another thing to look at when you are seeing automatic backups for your databases. Now, once you have the automatic backups configured and you checked everything that it's going to autonomous recovery service, which is the recommended backup destination for Oracle database at any CSP, since we have autonomous recovery service in all the CSPs now. Once we have that, we want to see whether the backups are happening successfully, right? So how do you see that? If you go to that particular database and details and click on backups tab, you will see the entries for the backups which happened so far, right? So there are 7 backups it shows. And these are most of these are automatic backups. There was one manual backup which was initiated by me. So we can create a manual backup as well. You see this create backup button, and then you can create a manual backup for your database as well. Now, with that, what happens is the daily incremental backup, which happen every whatever time you specify your backup time. These are virtual backups, which Nathan was explaining earlier. So you don't have to restore the same block twice when you are restoring that particular backup. There's no recovery involved, right? So what you can do is you can click on this and you can say create database from that backup. So this is out of place restore for your database backup. You can select all PDBs, or you can select specific PDBs to restore wherever you want to restore. Let's say you have another Exadata infrastructure running in another availability zone or region. You can choose that. Currently, Oracle database at AWS is available in US East and US West. So those are the only 2 regions I'm seeing right now. But I can select that if I have infrastructure running there, since Oracle database at AWS is dedicated infrastructure only. That's why we need to have infrastructure running in wherever you want to create the new database using these backups. So this is pretty simple. It's like creating the database, just that we are selecting whether we want to restore all the PDBs or just one PDB and where we want to restore it to. So that's one way of using the backups to do the out of place restores. Another way is if I go to more actions, there are 2 options here. One is create database from last backup, which is nothing but using the last backup to restore out of place. And then it's the same screen which we saw earlier, which lets us restore the database anywhere we want, wherever we have the Exadata infrastructure and the service running. Another way of restoring the database is in place restore. If we want to restore the database at the same place, we can do that. And this is point in time restore. That means you can do restore to latest timestamp. Since we have almost zero data loss exposure due to real-time protection, we can restore to the latest transaction. And then restore to a timestamp. We can specify a timestamp you want to restore to, or you can specify SCN number as well. All right. Okay, so that's pretty much I had to show on the console. If there are any questions, please feel free to post those on the chat, and then we'll see if we have time, we can take the questions uh, live as well. Okay, so these are some additional resources we have available for you to refer. And then you can also scan this QR code, and we have a Slack channel where you can ask us questions, and most of our team members are part of that Slack channel, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. All right, with that, we are at Q&A.
Thanks, Vishal. So I've been trying to keep up. We've had a few questions in the Q&A. I think I'd like to show the slide, the MAA slide, if you're able to flip back to that one and just talk through something here.
Okay, let me see.
Right there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So there was a question just about the option to restore a backup across regions. And so just wanted to talk about that in this context. So you'll notice that the automatic backups remote at the top of this slide that goes across that OCI managed network. So there's no data transfer charges for communications across the interlink within the same region. So that CSP primary region and the primary OCI region, there's no charge for data transfer across that. And so you can send backups to the OCI region that's paired with the primary region where you're hosting your primary Oracle database services. Um, but yes, there will be charges for if you're storing local backups in that CSP primary region, and then you decide to store backups in the primary OCI region that is paired with that CSP region, there is a charge for the backup stored. There's not a charge for the data transfer to send the backups there, if that makes sense. And then there was another question about restoring backups across regions. And this is supported by the Autonomous Recovery Service. It's a cross-region restore, and it's also called an out-of-place restore. And so you could restore, say, a backup from the primary OCI region into the primary CSP region, and that would be an out of place restore, and it would create a new database in that CSP primary region from the backup stored in OCI. So I hope that answers the question. If not, feel free to clarify in the Q&A for us.
And I think we are able to unmute if if you want to ask a live question. Please let us know. You can raise hand and we can do that. I don't see any. Oh, there's one open question.
So there's a question about options to store and manage encryption keys. That's actually a topic that Vishal and I are considering for a future multi-cloud happening session. So you do have the option. There's numerous Oracle solutions for key management, Oracle Key Vault, OCI Vault. There's the traditional database wallet. We also integrate with multiple other cloud service provider key management solutions, including Azure Key Vault and Google. I forget the name, but Google Key Management as well. So I think we do plan to do a session on that here coming up in the next month or two. So please stay tuned. We do want to go deep on that.
I think for Ravi's question, Ravi, do you mind reaching out to us to discuss more on this for DRCC? Um, you can Slack us on the Slack channel we showed earlier, and then we can discuss further on that. Let me go to the end.
And I just shared our email addresses in the web chat here so that you could email us questions directly offline if you have them.
Thank you, Nathan.
Oh, there is another question. Vishal, you talked about this. Do you want to answer this one again?
Sure. In the slide that was presented, the redo transport for Oracle Data Guard was shown as using the OCI managed network. However, there is an option to route it through the hyperscaler's own network instead. Is this supported across hyperscalers? Yes. So using the OCI network for redo transfer. The reason we have that shown is because that's cost effective option. There are no egress charges for using the OCI network when you are sending the redo traffic. If you are using CSP specific network, then there might be egress charges depending on the CSP. But yes, for Oracle database at AWS, you can use AWS network to send the redo traffic between the primary and standby databases, or even for autonomous recovery service. So autonomous recovery service in AWS, it is by default using the AWS network. There's nothing sent to OCI, right? But the redo traffic, we are talking about the MAA slide, I think, which is between the primary and standby database. You have option to use OCI network or AWS network.
And that does apply to all hyperscalers. So yes, that's valid for Azure and Google Cloud as well.
Yes. Just one more. No, no. I don't see any more open questions.
All right. You have our email addresses. Feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you and have a conversation with you. Thanks for joining as always. We appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you on the next multi-cloud happening session.
Thank you, everyone.